Hi guys, you're welcome to Halogenous Ideas. In this tutorial, we are going to be creating a CRUD table using Material UI. We are going to be using Django and React. Okay, so it's a practice-worthy project, something to get you up to speed with your Django and React stack. So this is what the final project is going to be looking like. So click on this. So you can see the spinner that came up before displaying the data. So this is what it's going to be looking like. You will have the opportunity to create data. If you come here, you can have something like let me use iPhone 14 Pro Max. You can write a description. This is the phone I want to buy. Obviously, this is not what you will put. The operating system, you can choose Android, iOS, or Windows. So the model that we are using are basically products, phones to be precise. So iOS, then the price in USD, maybe 283.88. The quantity you have in stock can be maybe 49, and you save it. You can see that after saving it, the table refreshed automatically. So that is it. Then for the updates, if you want to update, you can. I want to sell iPhone 14 Pro Max plus plus. So you can change this to 7. Then the quantity you can set it to maybe 52. If you save it, you can see it goes to refresh to get updated information. All these things they go to the backend. So, and if you want to delete data, you can click on this and the data will be deleted. So all this data that we have over here, I will show you how you can add the data manually, and I have some seed data that I prepared. I'll show you how to import them, and if you check the link in the description below on the GitHub repo for this particular tutorial, you will see the seed data there. I will upload all the files, including the source file for the whole tutorial. So that will be everything for this table. You can search. So for example, Redmi. So you can see this is the only Redmi product that we have. So you can also search for iOS. You see it will bring up all the iOS upstairs. So you can close this. Then after closing it, you can also show or hide filters. You can show or hide filters. Then after doing all that, you can also show or hide some columns. For example, you might want to hide the description, the operating system, whatever you want to do. You can hide it. So you can also toggle the density. So you can toggle the density anyhow you want. You can toggle the density. Then you can also make this to be full screen. You can make this to be full screen. I have 10 rows per page, so you can exit the full screen mode, and if you want to toggle the remaining ones, you can use this to toggle. You can see the page 2, then you can see the final page. So I'm having 10 entries per page. 10 entries per page. So let us toggle this thing back. So that will be all for this. Is exactly what we are going to be doing in this tutorial. So make sure you stay till the end, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. So let's move on. The prerequisites to this tutorial, just a basic knowledge of Django and React should do. If you need help getting yourself up to speed with that, you can come to our YouTube channel, Hello Genius Ideas slash videos, or you can just Google search us. So if you come under videos, or if you come to this playlist over here, you can come to the seasoned Python web developer, and all the requirements are there. So you can see for Python, this is for Django, this is for Django REST framework. Okay, so that is everything you need. Then this is for React, just to get yourself up to speed with React. So that will be all for the prerequisites. We have other tutorials here as well that would give you a better grasp of Django and React. So just, well, that will be all for the prerequisites. Let us start the project. So just create a folder on your laptop or your device basically. Then I'll open this in terminal. Then after opening it in terminal, I have to do, I want to create the front end and the back end. So I will do npx create react app front end. So this will create the front end for me. Then let me also right click, and while that is installing, open in another terminal. Then I'll say I will create a virtual environment basically. So this will be virtual env. Then I can call this CRUD underscore env. So cd into CRUD env. Then if you check, you can see that I have the front end, then I have the CRUD environment. So inside the CRUD environment, I have an isolated workspace where I can create the backend for the project. So before I'll be able to do anything in the environment, I have to activate the environment first. So slash bin activate. Now the environment is active, so I have to install everything I'm going to be needing. Django, no, that would be pip install Django, Django REST framework, Django REST framework. Then I'm also going to be needing Django course headers. That is everything I'm going to be needing, I guess. Yes, that should be all. So, okay, it is done installing everything. So I can run Django admin start project, and the project I want to start is backend. So now that backend, there is a folder here called backend. So I'll cd into this folder, cd backend. Then I can open my Visual Studio Code inside. Now that my Visual Studio Code is open, I have to create an app first. API. Where is it? This is my terminal. So I create an app, Python manage.py, then start an app. Then the app is going to be API. So you can see the app over here, API. So now that we are done with that, I think that will be all for the virtual environment, creating the virtual environment. But let us be sure that the setup is working fine. So come back to the terminal and do run server. So I'll just copy this URL over here, then come to my web browser, paste it. Okay, control. Oh, I was zoomed out before. So I think this means that everything is working fine. So we move to set up the backend. We first of all go to settings.py, and let me increase the font size of my VS Code so you can see these things better. 22, well, 22 is fine. So come down to installed apps, then under installed apps you want to do REST framework. Then after doing REST framework, I want to include course headers. Course headers. Then the last one will be API, which is this application over here. But let us quickly set up the course headers. So just come here, search for google.com, because Brave browser will give me the Brave search engine, which is not what I want. So I can do something like Django course headers. So Django course headers, I want to copy the middleware, particularly the middleware. Yes, this is the reason why I came here. So copy the middleware. The course headers is what gives the React access to the backend. So now that I've copied the middleware, there's one other setting that we have to copy, which is course allowed origins. Course allowed origins. Copy. Then so for this one, this is going to be equal to a list. So I'll just say https. No, it should be http rather. Localhost port 3000. Okay. What am I doing? It should be dot slot slash slash. Yes. Localhost port 3000. So I think that is all for all the settings that we have to do. So let us quickly go to create the models. Let us quickly go to create the models. So if you see the demo, the app demo that I did at the beginning, you will see that the name of the models is products. So that is the reason why the data in the front end is product. So that's the reason why we are creating the product model. So before we create the product model, the products are basically phones. So and in one of the options, I set it in such a way that you can choose the operating system of the phone, which can be Android, iOS, or Windows. So let us come here to create constants.py. This is not necessary. You can also create, you can decide to write the constant inside this place, but I like to keep everything neat. So os choices equal to a list of tuples. So this should be Android, then Android, comma, then the second one is going to be Android copy. This is going to be iOS, then Windows Phone, Windows, Windows, and that is all for the choices. Now we can create the model. So to create the model, I want to bring in the constants first. So from that will be it should be dot constants import os choices. So now we can create the model. How do we do that? We just say product class product, that will be models dot model. So what fields do we want to take into consideration? Let's say the name of the product, or we can say title or name. Let's go with name. So name equal to models dot character field, and this character field, the maximum length is 255, and the next one is going to be the description, and this description is going to be a text field. So this text field, let me set the blank to true, although I don't want to, but you can just do blank equal to true. So for the next one, os, so you see the way I can add this particular field, models dot, it's also going to be a character field, but I'll say the maximum length, I can set the maximum length. If you check all the constants, none of them, this is 3 3, this is 7 3 3, another 7, so we can just say the maximum length should be 8. Then after that, I will now say choices equal to os choices. So after doing that, I'll say the price is going to be equal to models dot decimal field. So this is going to be a decimal field. The maximum digits, let's say this equal to 10, then the decimal places should be 2. Decimal places should be equal to 2. Maximum digits of 10 and the decimal places should be 2. Then the quantity the quantity should be equal to models.integer field. So this integer field is going to be a default is going to be equal to 0. Then let me just add a string representation self, then return self dot name. So save this, and I think that should be it for the models. Let me register the models under admin.py. So from .models import, what do we want to import? I want to import product, then admin.site.register so that I can view it in admin products. Okay, so save this, and this is the models, and this is where I register the models. So I want to be able to log into the admin dashboard primarily so I can show you this thing over here. I can show you these OS choices so that I can show you these OS choices. So come here, and let me make the migrations. To make the migrations, Python manage.py make migrations. So make migrations is basically going to register the migration to make. It hasn't made the migration, so now this is where it commits it to database migrates. So now everything is committed to database. For me to be able to log into the database, I have to create a super user. So um, Python manage.py create super user. So admin at admin.com admin, yes. Okay, now my super user is created. So let me run back my server so I can log into the admin dashboard. So this is my server. I think this is the admin link login. I have it on my web browser. This is the link basically, port 8000/admin. So it will route you to this page. So if you are not logged in, so admin. So you can see the products. The reason why I can see this particular model over here is because if you come to this place, admin.py, you will see this thing over here. You will see this thing over here. This line of code is what makes the product available. So if I should come to products, you see I don't have any product. If I want to add a product, I can come here and do something like what phone can I think of? iPhone 14 Pro Max. The phone everybody wants to have, but not everybody can afford it. Not everyone can afford it. Okay, so for the operating system, which is the reason why I came here, you see what I'm having here: Android, iOS, and Windows. If you come here, come to constant. This is supposed to be capital W. Save. So come here. You see that it is small letter now, but let me reload this page. You should update to you can see capital letter now. So iPhone 14, iPhone 14 Pro Max, the phone everyone wants to have, but not everyone can afford. So the operating system, I can just say iOS. The price, I think, should be somewhere around. I don't know how much iPhone 14 Pro Max is, but let me just say $900 or 975. The quantity, let me say 26. So save this. You see I have my iPhone 14 Pro Max. The reason it is displaying this product name over here is because if you come here, admin.py, no, models.py, this string representation. Okay, so I think that will be all for the models for now. So let us go and create the resources that we need to build up to set up the API itself. So this is just the model that we created. So we need to create a serializer for this model. And how do we do that? Very simple. Just come here, create a new file, serializers.py, and you come here from rest framework.serializers, import the model serializer, then from dot models import products. So you come here and you do something. You say class product serializer is going to be inheriting from model serializer, and I'm going to be creating a meta class. So this meta class, many times I run into trouble because I use small letter m here. So please, never you make that mistake. This should be capital M. Then the model equal to product, and the fields that I want to take into consideration underscore underscore all underscore underscore. So this is going to be my serializer. I forgot to add this. So now that my serializer is good to go, I can go and create the view, and I'm going to be using model view set because the view set has all the endpoints, all the functionalities that I want: create, read, update, and delete. Okay, so I'll come to views.py for me to create the model view set from REST framework import I think view sets. Yes. So now for me to create my view sets, class product view set. So this view set is going to be view set dot model view set. So I'm going to be adding my query set. Query set is going to be equal to products dot objects. No, it should be products. Okay, I've not brought my product in. So from dot models import products. So this will be products dot objects dot all. I think I want to order by negative ID. Alright, so basically I want the most recent products. When you add products in Django like that, when you add data to a Django model like that, when you want to query it, if you query product.object.all, the most recent ones are going to be below the query set. So basically I want it to be in ascending order or descending order. The most recent ones, I want the most recent ones to appear on top of the list. That is basically what I'm trying to achieve over here. Okay, so basically the ID in descending order from the highest ID to the lowest ID. So after that, the serializer class is going to be from serializers import product serializer. Then the serializer class is going to be equal to that product serializer. Then the next thing I want to do, I think that will be all for the view set. But before we move any further, I want to import data. Like since we are going to be working with an actual table, I want the table to have some kind of seed data before we start creating and all those things. So I'm going to write a function that is going to import dummy data that I prepared before now. So let me just create a new file over here, seed data.py. So in this seed data.py, if you come, I think the seed data is here. So these files are going to be made available. Just check the link in the description below. You will see them in the GitHub repo of this particular tutorial. So I'll just copy all of them and I'll paste them here. So these are I just got all these ones thanks to the almighty ChatGPT. So, well, ChatGPT is not almighty, but yes, thanks to ChatGPT. So save this, and now I have my seed data. I can use it. I can just import it. So I'm going to be writing a function I'll be using to import it. So from seed data, import seed data. So the seed data is coming from this variable over here. So now that I've brought the seed data in, so def import data, then request. So after accepting the user's request, I'll just say for data in seed data, then what do I want it to do? Just create a product. The product is going to be equal to product. So the product is going to be having the following fields. I'm going to be having name equal to, basically, if you open the product, where is the model? If you open the product, you have to supply the name, the description, the OS, the price, and also the quantity. Okay, so, and if you check the seed data, you see it's a dictionary. This is the name. So just index, use this key to find this value. So name is going to be equal to data name. Okay, so, and no, so let me just copy this and paste it in. So I think the second one is description, OS, and quantity. So description, OS, quantity, then I think it should be price. Yes, because if I come to the models, name, description, OS, price, and quantity. Name, description, OS, price, and quantity. I think everything is name, description, OS, quantity, price. I hate spelling errors. So after creating the product, you now have to save the product, because at this point you only created a product, but it is not in the database yet. Before the product is going to be committed to the database, you have to do products dot save. Okay, so this product dot save, I'm going to be preparing a message. So this message, I can just say message equal to, maybe, let me use this, then I'll say message seed data imported successfully. Okay, and let me bring in JSON response. So from django.http import JSON response. So this JSON response, just to return it from here, and I think I made a mistake here. This message is supposed to be under the imported, under the scope of the function. So just return a JSON response, and this JSON response will be message rather. So that will be all for the function. Now let us go and write the URL, the urls.py. You have to create it. urls.py. So for this urls.py, I think I can close these other ones. So for this urls.py, so let us start with the view set. Don't forget, if you come under views, so the two views of interest, we have the import data and the product view set. So the way you will connect the two of them to the main project urls.py, it is different. So let us start with the view set. For the view set, I will do from REST framework dot routers import, what do I want to import? Default router. So this default router is what I'm going to be using for the view set. So from dot views, just import everything. So import everything. Then from Django.urls, import the path and also import include. So now I can start to create my URLs. The first one I'm going to be creating, I'll just say router equal to my default router that is coming from REST framework. Then after that, I'll say router dot register. I will just register that particular view set. So I'll just say raw string products. So raw string products. Then I'll bring in the view sets. Product view set. So this product view set is coming from here. It's coming from here. So um, the next thing I have to do is to bring in my URL patterns. So the URL patterns is going to be a list. Then I'll say path. The first one, import. Let me write the import. Then for this import now, I'm just going to be bringing import data. This import data is coming from here. Okay, so this is going to be the URL for this import data. I don't necessarily have to add the name, but import products, import products. So for the second one, path again. So I'm going to leave it as an empty string. Then I'll say slash comma include router router.urls. I have to point something out. There is a project I worked on one time that because I had different view sets, I was creating multiple routers. Router 1, router 2, router.register and all that. I don't have to do all that. So I'm showing you now, don't make the mistake I made in that project. So if you have multiple view sets, just register them into one router, then push the router to this place. But they will be having different strings over here. So that is it basically. Then if I save this, and I think I'm done with the URLs, then I'll come to this main URL file for the project and take all these things out first. Then include. So I'll just say path. I'll just say API, then comma include API. No, it has to be a string API.urls, and that is it basically. That is everything. So now that we have connected this particular endpoint, the first thing we want to do is to import that data. The first thing we want to do is to import the data. So just API slash import is going to import the data, and if the import is successful, you can see the response we are to get. See data imported successfully. So come here and this will be copy this and paste slash API slash imports, and if everything that we wrote is correct, it should import everything. You can see seed data imported successfully. It means that everything went smoothly. So if I come here and I reload, you can see all the data that we have. You can see the iPhone 14 Pro Max that we created, and if you come here, you see the seed data. The seed data. You can see the seed data over here. iPhone 13, Samsung Galaxy S21. You can see iPhone 13, Samsung Galaxy S21. So that is it, and that will be all for the backend. That will be all for the backend part. That will be all for the backend. Now let us go and work on the front end. So okay, the front end is good to go now. um what I want to do is to npm start. So npm start, I'm having one. Okay, cd with ls. Yes, cd front end. So npm start. Okay, so it will open. Okay, you opened it for me here. Oh, that's not bad. I have my backend here, then I have my front end here. So you can see the React app is was installed successfully. So let us start working on it. Come here and code. Okay, so I have my front end over here. Before I do anything, I want to install some packages. So if you come on that component, you see now we are going to be using for the CRUD table. We are going to be using material UI CRUD table, material React table. This is what we are going to be using. So this is what we are going to be using for the CRUD table. It has the create, read, update, and delete functions. So we just have to modify it to suit our needs. So this particular command that I wrote over here, this is why I got it. This is where I got it. So the only thing I didn't add date pickers. So I can just copy from here. Um, you will see that is the same thing if I remove the date pickers. So just use only this. Then I'll come to my terminal, my front end terminal. Don't forget I have two terminals. This is the back end terminal, then this is the front end terminal. So paste this and just allow it to install. Then after that, I'm going to be installing SAS and Axios. I'm going to be installing SAS and Axios. So we just have to wait a bit for this to install. Now the next thing we want to install is the SAS and Axios. So npm install. I'm just feeling lazy to type. Npm install SAS and Axios. So I believe you know what we use SAS and Axios for. So SAS is a preprocessor for CSS and it is relatively simple to use, so don't worry. If you've never used it before, you can use this opportunity to learn it. Then Axios is what I'm going to be using to query the backend. Okay, so just install it. Okay, everything is installed, and for you to check, if you come to package.json, you see material React table, you see Axios, and you see SAS. So everything is working fine. Then after that, I think we can start working on the front end then. So normally what I like to do first is to delete all the source folder, but I don't want to do that. Let me just delete the ones I don't want. I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this. So just move them to trash. I don't want this, so go to trash. So the only thing I want is index.js, app.js, and index.css. So app.css will have to go on leave. Okay, so and I have to rename this to index.scss because I have SAS now. So and I don't want this. Okay, for my index.scss, all the code I want is just to reset all the margin and the padding. Margin should be 0, then padding should be 0, the box sizing border box. Then I'm going to be having the app container. So this app container, just give it a padding of 4 rem. Then do I have to display flex? Justify the content center, then align the items center. So I'm using flexbox over here just to display and align the content. So come to index.js. I do not need all this, and I do not need this. I do not need this. So I also do not need this. This is going to be index.scss. Then I think that is everything I'm going to be doing here. So the next thing I want to do is to go to my app.js. This app.js, just cut all these ones away. Okay, just cut all these ones away, then just import React, and that is all I want. So the reason why I can get that IMR is because I have this VS Code extension installed, this ES7 React Redux React Native snippets. So now that I've cleared my front end working environment, I can start working on the app. So the first thing I want to do is to try to fetch data from the API. So I want to try to fetch data from the API. So how can I do that? So after importing React, I want to also import useState useEffect. So then I'll bring this other ones in. Use state and also use effect. So I'm going to be creating some state variables. Use state snippet. So this is going to be is loading, then the value is going to be true. So by default, if it's loading, that is what I'm going to be using to keep track of it. Then I'm going to be declaring const, no, use state snippet. This is going to be data. Then I'm just going to be having an empty list over here. So that's going to be it. Then now I want to play a trick. I want to play a trick. I'm just going to say const CRUD URL is going to be localhost. Now let me quickly show you something. So if you come here, instead of imports, products, you can see that it is giving me all the products. This is giving me all the products. So the get method, you can see that you have the get and the post method. Okay, that is very valid. So the get method for this particular endpoint will give me all the products. The post method is going to create a new product for me, and you can even see the options over here. Okay, so this particular endpoint is going to be the endpoint for the CRUD URL. And for example, let me just open one ID. You can see this ID of 21. If I say slash 21 and I open it, you can see that it is giving me, you can see the options, the allowed methods: get, put, patch, delete. So if I want to get a single product, I just bring the ID of the product here. You can see this ID. So it's giving me the whole product. And if I should put, I can put, meaning that I can edit the product from here, and the put method is going to be giving me that edit. If I want to delete this product, I'll just click on this delete. Okay, so it will just delete it. So like I said, this is going to be the CRUD URL. So copy this, and this is going to be the CRUD URL. Then after setting the CRUD URL, let us write a function that is going to be fetching the data. So the function that is going to be setting the data, I'll just say const fetch data. Okay, this fetch data is going to be an asynchronous function. So it's not accepting anything, an asynchronous arrow function. Then I'll say set is loading to true because we are fetching data. So set is loading to true. Now I'm going to be using a try block here. I'm going to be using a try block here. For this try block, I'll just say const response equal to await, then await axios dot get, and you are getting from that CRUD URL. You are getting from that CRUD URL. So you are not sending any data. Then anything that you get as the response, just set data. We are going to be setting the data as response dot data. Okay, then after setting the data, then you set is loading to false, meaning that it's not loading the data anymore. So you set this to false. Then after doing that, let me log the response. Let me log this response to the console.log response.data. So, but on the other hand, so this will be console.log error. Okay. Then after that, also set its loading to be false. Actually, I can bring well, let me just, because this is what is in my notes. So, but you can actually bring this out here. I just want to follow my notes. You can bring it somewhere here. So, and that will be all. Now, this is function definition. I have to make a function call, and the function call, I want to make it using this use effect. So as soon as you mount this component, it will trigger that that particular. It will trigger this function. So let me say CRUD Table app so that it will not be empty. So I'll just come here and write my use effect. Let me create that use effect snippet. So I don't have any dependencies, and I'm not returning anything. So I can just fetch my data in peace, and I think that will be all. So just save this. So as soon as the component mounts, it will try to fetch data. So let us see the front end. This is it over here. It's telling me that Axios is not defined, so I've not imported Axios. So import Axios from Axios save. So you can see it's giving me CRUD table app, but Control Shift I, because I logged, you can see it's giving me this. So you can see all the products that we have, and it is giving me from the most recent one to the first one. You can see. Let us do something. Come here under views. So let me remove this one so you see for yourself. If I reload this, you see it's giving me from one down, but I want it to be giving me from the most recent one. So okay, so now that we are sure that we are actually getting data, so I want to create a spinner. I want to create a spinner, something that if it is fetching the data, the spinner is going to be spinning. So normally what I like to do is that since they are components, I will just come under, no, this is the backend. So under src, I'll create a folder components. So after creating the components folder, inside the components folder, I'll create spinner. Then inside the spinner, I'll create spinner.jsx. Then I will also create spinner.scss. Then for this spinner.gss rafce, then I'm going to import spinner.scss. So in my spinner, I'm going to be having um, this one. Let me give it a class name of maybe, let me say spinner container. Yes. So this is going to be spinner container. Then div. Let me give this one a class name. This is going to be the loading spinner. The loading spinner. So this is all the code that will be contained in this particular file. Then if I come to the spinner itself, I'll write the css. So the first thing I want to do is write a keyframe. So keyframes. So for this keyframe, the identifier is going to be spinner. Then I'm going to be giving it a 0% at the 0%. Where is percent here? I'm looking for it on my keyboard. So for 0%, just transform rotate, and you are rotating 0 degrees, but at 100% you are rotating 360 degrees, so it will rotate around. You are rotating 360 degrees. So now let me write the spinner container. I'm targeting this spinner container. So for this spinner container, dot spinner container, I can just say the width. I can say the width should be 100%, and maybe the height should be say 100 viewport height or something. Then I'll just say display the spinner as flex, justify the content center, and also align the items center. Okay, so I think that will be all for the spinner container. Then after that dot loading spinner. Okay, so to load spinner now, the width, I can say the width should be 50 pixels, and also the height should be 50 pixels, and let me give it a border. The border should be maybe 10 pixels solid, and the color code EEFOF2, EEFOF2. So then I will also give it a border top, of this again, but I'm going to be giving it a different color. Let me say 414141, 414141. So let me give it a border radius of maybe 50%. Then now the animation, I'll give it an animation. I'll call my keyframe. Don't forget my keyframe. The identifier is spinner. So I'll say spinner 1.5 seconds. I want it to be linear, then it will be infinite. So it is continuous. And if I save this, my spinner is good to go. Then another thing I like to do is that in this components folder, I will create a new file and call it index.js. So all my components, I will export them from here. I will export all my components from here. So I can just say export default as spinner, and I'm going to be exporting from spinner slash spinner. So that is it. So I can just export from components. Now that I am done with the spinner, so I can just import the spinner. So let me just spinner. Okay, so it will import my spinner. Now let us see what the spinner looks like. So instead of having this, if I save this for now and I come here, you see what I'm having. But what if, let me reload. Okay, I'm still having this. So bring up the spinner. So bring up the spinner. Save this. If I come here, you see what the spinner looks like. Okay, I think that form that I'm having. Where is the SCSS of the spinner? Let me see. 70 viewport height. So okay, so you can see the spinner over here. This is the spinner. So every time he's trying to fetch data, that is when he comes up. That is when the spinner will come up. Okay, so let us write our code to that effect. So if you come to app, so instead of having this spinner over here, I'm going to be creating a condition. So let us write a condition that will bring up the spinner as per if there is data available, then you take the spinner off, then you display the our CRUD table. But if there's no data, you will just display something like no data. But while you are fetching data, bring up the spinner. Okay. So and don't forget the conditions for the data to be set for the loading to be false is after the response from the API, or if it is getting any errors, it will still set the loading as false. So it will just present no data since the data is an empty list. It's an empty array rather. What we have in Python is list. So I'll say is loading. If it is loading, I'll bring up the question mark and I'll just bring up my spinner. So this spinner, okay, so the other part is going to be this. So the other part I can just say I can do something like now if it is not loading, if it is loading, the only two options is true or false. Okay, so if it's loading is true, it will come and run the spinner. But if it is not loading anymore, the two possible options is that we have data or we are still going to be having an empty array. So if I'll just come here to say something like if the data dot length, okay, if the data dot length equal to 0, I will have another question mark over here, like that would be a ternary operator inside another ternary operator. So I can just come here and give a paragraph and I'll say no data found. Okay, meaning that we don't have any data. But on the other hand, what if I have data? What if I have data? So um, what if I have data? So I'll just come here and say, for now, let me just respond data day. Okay, that is pigeon. Sure. Let me have this for now. Let me have this for now. So now let me go and fetch data. You see, it is telling me data day, and the reason is because there's actually data. But let me play a trick. So this response.data, let me comment it out. So by default, we are going to be having this. So even after fetching the data, because we are not setting the data will still be an empty string. So let me save this. It should be showing me no data here. You can see no data found. You can see no data found. It will load. It is telling me no data found. So, but if I should comment this one out and I save this, come back here, you see it's telling me data day. So you can see data day. So now I am free to uncomment this one. I'm free to uncomment this one and okay. So now that we have gotten to this juncture, the last thing for us to do to complete the tutorial is to come up with our CRUD table here. To come up with our CRUD table here. So if you come to the link where I opened the other time, so I think the CRUD table should be somewhere down here. Okay, the CRUD table, let me look for it. So editing, let me say CRUD examples. I'm trying to look for that CRUD table. There is a particular CRUD table that has all the functionalities that we need. Exactly, this is it over here. This is the CRUD table over here. So if you click on create new user, it will bring this thing up for you. So this is exactly what we want to do. This is exactly what we want to do. So you'll be able to search for you'll be able to search and you can also bring up the filters. You can show or hide some columns and also you can toggle the density. You can toggle the density whichever way you want and you can make it full screen. Okay, so this is what we want to do. Now if you come here and you see the JavaScript, if you scroll down, you will see all the code over here. You will see all the code over here. You can see all the code of the table. You can see the validators, where they validate data and all those things. So you can see that it's a lot of code to write. So we are not going to be writing this by hand. Okay, we are not going to be writing this by hand. And if you take a good look at what they did here, they are using a query client, a JavaScript query client, and yeah. If you open this on GitHub, you will see what their data looks like. I think there's a GitHub repo. There should be a GitHub. Yeah, open on GitHub, so you will see it on GitHub. What that particular table looks like, you will see. This is the code on GitHub. Okay, this is the code on GitHub. So you see the columns. You see everything that you need to know basically about that particular table. You can see on creating row cancel, on creating row save, on editing row cancel, on editing row save, and all of that. So this particular table, like I said, we are not going to be writing it by hand. I took my time to refactor the code. So I wrote it in form of a component. So that component is what we are going to be using. I'm going to be explaining the component so you understand what is going on. This query client, this stand stack, we are not using it. What we want is for us to query the backend, our Django backend, for us to query this particular Django backend instead of getting from their query client. We don't need all that for this particular tutorial. So what I'm going to do is that in my components, I'll create a new folder and I will call it maybe CRUD table. Okay, CRUD table, then CRUD CRUD table dot .js and x. So now if you check the files in the GitHub repo, you will see this particular file in the GitHub repo. So you will see the seed data for the backend and you will see these components. Both of them will be in the GitHub repo, don't worry. So what you're going to copy, we I have to I partitioned everything into two places, the component itself, and you're going to be seeing the table requirements. So for this particular file over here, you copy the components. So I will explain the parts of the components, don't worry. So you copy the whole of this. We have installed all these packages in the beginning, so you don't have to stress yourself. So the table component, just copy all these ones. So copy everything, export default general table, copy, then paste it. I don't want to use general table. Let me use CRUD table. CRUD table. Okay. So save this. Okay. So this is what the CRUD table looks like. This is what the CRUD table looks like. So you're going to be importing all these things from the material React table that we installed in the beginning, if you remembered. Then we are going to be, I think we are not we are not going to be using memo in this particular file, so we can take it out. So we import our React and the use state. Then we have the import from the material React table. Then we have all these ones coming from the material UI, MUI slash material. Then we have the material UI icons. So if for your own table, the one that you want to create, if you have any other icons that are different from these other icons that I have over here, all you have to do is just to come to your web browser, look for material UI icons. Why is it typing all caps? So yes, material icons. So you see it over here. So all those icons that you have, just come here, look for anyone that suits your needs. So come back here. I have the edit icon, I have the delete icon, then I have Axios that I'm going to be using to query my backend. So for the CRUD table, the things that you have to send into the CRUD table for it to work properly, you have to send in data. Then you have to send in a function set that is going to be fetching data, because every time you update data, I want to query every time the data is updated, I want to query the backend to get the updated data. Okay. even though it's going to populate the table with the updated data, but I'm not fine with that. I want to ask the backend to give me fresh updates. So that will be fetch data. We have the set validation errors, which I'm going to be showing you how to set this up. We have the columns. The columns are coming from here. If you come to their GitHub, this is what the columns look like. This is what the columns look like. But I'll show you how to make your own. Then we have the CRUD URL. We have the CRUD URL. Now the reason I can bring in this CRUD URL and not having the create URL, the read URL, the update URL, and the delete URL is because since I'm using a model view set, and in the beginning, if you remember, I showed you that all I have to do for this other one is just slash, then the ID of the phone I want to get. If I want to get single data, if I want to get all the data, I'll just post to slash product. If I want to create a new data, I'll post to slash product. If I want to get all the data, I'll get from slash product. So that's the reason why I can configure everything with a single CRUD URL, then validate data. Now when you are trying to create a new data or to update data, you need some sort of validations, some sort of field validations. That is where this validate data is coming from. I'm going to show you how you can set up the validate data. Okay, so now we have this const is loading data error and all these other ones. This one is just to check if there are any errors while loading the data. So when you want to create data, this is the function that is responsible for creating the data. So you pass your values into it, then Axios is going to post it to our CRUD URL. Okay, whatever we supply as the CRUD URL over here, Axios will post it there. If you want to update data, don't forget that we are going to be having the CRUD URL. If you come under app, this is our CRUD URL, and our CRUD URL already has this slash over here. So for this other one, just bring the ID of that particular data you want to update, and you put a slash at the end, and you're good to go. Then to delete data, you do the same thing basically, but this will be axios.delete, and in this other one it will be axios.put. Don't forget that put is different from patch. Okay, put is when you want to update data and you have to pass in all the fields to update the data, but patch, if it is just one or two that you want to update, you don't have to pass in all the fields, just pass in that those maybe one or two fields that you want to update. Okay, so but for my use case, put is what can fit into this place. Then we have the delete data. This is the function that does the actual deletion. Okay, this is the function that is going to be deleting data. So we have handle create data. So every time you click on the button to create new data, as in if you come here, the material react table, if you click on this button over here, you can see this pop up. So in our own case, this is the function that is responsible for that pop-up. Handle create data, this is the function over here. Okay, so the handle update data, this is the function that is responsible for it. If you click on this, you can see this particular function over here. You cannot edit the id, and I'll show you how you can set this particular field such that you cannot edit it. So come here, update action, then we also have the delete action. If you click on delete over here, if you click on delete, you see that it's giving you this alert over here, this JavaScript alert notification here, that do you want to delete this user. If you say okay, you can see the user is no longer there. So you come here, that is what this open delete confirm modal is doing. So this is the table. You pass in your columns, you pass in the data, these are the things you have to pass into it. Then the edit display modal, you can edit inline, but I prefer to edit like in modal format. So editing inline is that if you click on this edit now, instead of displaying it as a modal, it will just give you all these options for you to edit everything inline, for you to edit it inline. But I don't want to do that. When you click on this edit, it should be giving me this modal. Then if you enable row editing, true, this is what is going to be giving you, this is what makes it possible for you to have that modal. So enable, you can do it, you can set this table up in such a way that you only want to display data, but you know, in our own case, we want to display data and we want to be able to modify data. That is why enable editing is true. So if you want to get the row ID, this is the row I, this is the row.id, the field that you are going to be using for the ID is row.id. Okay, if you come here, the ID field, this is the ID field over here. This is the ID field. And in our own case too, if you check the data that is being sent, you can see the ID, this ID field over here. So then we have the tool alert banner props, it's loading data error, the table container props. So this is where you set the on creating row cancel, on creating row save. Basically, I'm setting all the validation errors to an empty dictionary. So on editing row cancel, also all the validation errors, I'm resetting them, handle save data and all that. So these other components, they are just like I said, I just had to copy it from there and refactor it. So you don't really have to do much here. Then you render edit row dialog. All these other ones, just leave them the way they are. Just leave them the way they are. If you want to change the icons, this tooltip that you have over here, this tooltip, let's talk about that tooltip because it will be useful for you for something else. So I've imported it. That particular tooltip, where is the tooltip? This tooltip now. If you come here and if you hover on it, you see that delete text. This delete text that is showing here, this is a tooltip. So it comes in very handy. So you can use it even outside of this particular project. If you want to create a tooltip in React, you can just bring in that material UI element and you use it as your tooltip. So you just pass in whatever you want it to create the tooltip for, and you can see the title of the tooltip, edit. So you also have the delete, and on click, open delete confirm modal. You just pass in the row, and you know that in that delete confirm modal, it's going to be using the delete row data if it is true. Then row original, then .id. So it will just log you to the console that you have deleted data. You can customize this anyhow you want. You can customize it anyhow you want. So I think that would be the table basically. That would be the table basically. Then when you are done, you just render material React table, then table equal to table. So let me save this one. Let me save this one. Now I have to bring the CRUD table into my index.js. So I will export default as CRUD table, and I'm going to be exporting from CRUD table, CRUD table. Save this and come back here, CRUD table. Okay, so I have my CRUD table here. Now you can see all the dependencies of my CRUD table, all of them. So let me go and start creating all these dependencies one after the other. So I have my data and my fetch data already. I have the data, the fetch data, and the CRUD URL. I have them already. If you come here, this is my fetch data function. Okay, this is my fetch data function. I showed you something here. So after deleting data, after posting to the database, after posting to my backend, it will fetch the updated query set. So after updating data, it will also fetch updated query set. After creating data, it will fetch updated query set. So come back here. That is what this fetch data is doing. Then the CRUD URL, we already know what the CRUD URL will be used for. Then we have the data. So this data is what is going to be sent to this one. So if the data is an empty list, it is going to be showing no data found instead of showing that table. So we won't have to be displaying a table without data. So that is it. Now, okay, we can continue working on our project. I have my CRUD URL. So let me copy the requirements for the table. So come here and I have the requirement. I've written them already. So just come here, requirements for the table, copy everything. So those are the columns and these are the validators. So copy, then come here and paste them. So let's start explaining everything one after the other. So I have the validation errors, then I have set validation errors. One of the this set validation error This is where it is coming from. This is where it is coming from. And don't forget the options available for the OS, Android, iOS, and Windows. Those are the options available. Now, let us start creating the columns. The first one is going to be the ID. If you come here, you see the ID. You can see the ID over here. Don't worry. So, you see the ID. This use memo. I know where it is coming from. This is the use memo here. No, use memo. And that is it. So, now for the ID field, you are going to be having the accessor key. Now, the accessor key is ID, and the reason is because if you come here, use memo is defined now. What is wrong with you? So, why are you shouting? I think I'm not logging this to the console anymore. So, fetch data, log the data to the console. Okay, so if you come here, you see the accessor key. The accessor key is the ID. Okay, and you can see the ID over here. That is the field of the accessor key. So for this particular ID field, that is why I'm having ID. But for the header is what is going to be displayed on top. If you come to the material React table, in their own case they have the ID, but I want to have capital ID in my own case, and the size is just 50. I think this is 50 pixels or so. Enable editing is false, so that when you want to edit it, if I click on this to edit, you see the ID, I will not be able to edit the ID. Okay, and if I want to create a new user, I will not be able to edit the ID because I don't need the ID to be going into the database. So that is why the enable editing will be false. Now you can see the accessor key for the next one, which is name. The header is name, the accessor key is name. If you come here, my own accessor key, you can see is name. Is name for the name of the product. So now these other ones, it is only if you want to. In our own case, we are creating a CRUD table, so obviously we have to set the edit text field props. So required is true. That means that this particular field is required. Then the error, I have validation errors dot name. So the validation errors, I will show you how we are going to be creating it. So we also have the helper text, the name, then all these other ones on focus. So the same thing goes for the description. The same thing, no. For in the case of the OS, don't forget that we have select. Okay. The reason is because we are going to be selecting between Android, iOS, and Windows. Android, iOS, and Windows. If you come to the backend, don't forget. Come here. If you try to create a new product, add products, you see that in the case of the OS we have to select. So that is what I want to happen for these other ones. You can see iOS, Android, Windows, like that. So those are the only three options I want to have. So that is the this thing. For price. For the header, I'm going to be having price in USD, but the accessor key is going to be price. If you come here, you will see the accessor key price. I think the last one is going to be quantity. So come here for quantity. So and the dependency for this particular one is validation errors. For this memo is validation errors because we are going to be needing it for this one over here. Now let us create the validators. I think we are almost done. For the validators, this is the function that is actually validating the data. Every data that you pass into the table, this is the function that is going to validate it. Come here, you will see the validate data over here. So I'm having I'll pass the data into validate data. If you come to CRUD table, you will see it somewhere here. When you want to create a new data, handle create data, new validation errors equal to validate data values. So before creating the data, before sending it to the database, it will first of all perform some kind of validation on the data. So come here. Now for it to validate name, I set it in such a way that I wrote the validation function over here, validate length. I'm saying that I'm passing the name of the field, and I'm passing 6. If you check this one now, it is saying that if the value dot length equal to 0, I would say that the field cannot be empty, meaning that it's an empty string. But if the value.length is less than the lowest that we can have, then a minimum of lowest characters is required. Else, I will return an empty string. If I'm returning an empty string, it means that there is no validation errors. Okay, so that is what I'm doing for name. For description, I'm doing the same thing, but in the case of the description, I'm having 20 characters. It cannot be less than 20 characters. Then for the OS, don't forget that I'm going to be validating the options available. So if you come to validate select, I'm having value then options. So I'm just saying option.include values. If the value that the user passing is available among the options, then if it is not available, that is why I'm having this one. If it is not available, then option unavailable, else put an empty string, meaning that there is no validation error. The same thing goes for the other ones. For the price, I'm validating minimum number, and minimum number for the price is zero. Quantity is the minimum is zero. I don't know how you want to add a product without a price though, but I'm just making room for it. So then validate minimum number and all that. I think that will be all for the requirements. Now let us assemble the table. Let us bring the table into this place. You can see this CRUD table over here. So copy it, and instead of having data day here, instead of having data day, I can just comment this one out. Then I'll bring in that CRUD table. So now let us pass in all the data that is required. If you come here, it will start shouting. It will start shouting now. Okay, it is still giving me data day. I have not saved. Let us just add everything. Let us just add all the fields. So for the first one, I'll just say data equal to data. Okay. Then after that one, I will say the fetch data equal to fetch data. Then the third one is going to be set validation errors. Set validation errors. Then set validation errors. The set validation errors is coming from here. Okay. Then after set validation errors, I'm going to be having columns. Then after that one, I'm going to be having the CRUD URLs, CRUD URL, CRUD URL. Then I think the last one is going to be the validate data function, validate data, validate data, and I think we are good to go. So if we check the front end now, you can see now we have this. Now we have the table. Let me close this. You can see the table over here, and we are having um 10 entries per page. You can see that we are having 10 entries per page. We are having a total of 21. In this particular one, we are having 21 to 12. So I can just go to the next page, and from there I'll go to the next page. You can see. So go back to the first one. Then if I want to search, for example, come here, search for Android. You can see it is giving me anything that has a touch of Android in it. I don't know where this two is coming from. So but at least it is giving me everything that has a touch of Android in it. If I want iOS. So iOS. So then if I want to bring up the filters, you can see I can just filter everything. Then if I want to hide some particular columns, I can hide the description. I can decide to hide the operating system, whichever whatever I want to do. So then apart from that one, I can also toggle the density like we did in the other place. I can toggle the density at will. Then if I want it to be full screen, it can also be full screen, such that the only thing I'm saying is the table. So now let us check the update and the delete. The create, the update and the delete. So I want to create a new data now. If I come here, so the name, I can say the name of my product is maybe what can I think of now? I use a Redmi 10C. Then the description, It's going to be this is the phone I use. Then for the operating system, you can see Android, iOS, or Windows. So no, this is Android. We don't tell lies. So the price in USD, I think I bought it for around 90,000, and the price in USD now is going to be somewhere around, give or take, that should be around $50, give or take. So let me just say $51.25. Then for the quantity, how many quantity do we have in stock? Let's say 42. If I should save it, you can see 22. This is the ID. Redmi 10C. This is the phone I use. The operating system is what? Android. The price in USD is what? 25, and the quantity is 42. Exactly what we did. If you check the backend console over here, you can see what we have. You can see it is. He posted new data just now. Then after posting it, he went to fetch current data. So that is it. The create new data is working fine. We can also test the validators. If I come here and do something like Techno Spark 4 Pro, I think this phone has been phased out. I once used it. So this is the phone I once used. The operating system is also Android, but permits me to just iOS. Just permits me. Then I bought it for how much? That should be around 40,000 or so. In dollars now, 40,000 naira should be somewhere around $30 or so. How God? But it's 2.5 or something. Then for the quantity, let's say 7. But in this case, let me put 0. If I try to save it, you can see quantity cannot be less than 0. If you check the validators that we used, the validators to validate the quantity, you can see it cannot be less than 0. It cannot be 0. So come here. If I say this one is maybe 56 and I try to put this one as 0, if I try to save, you see price cannot be less than 0. So I can say the price maybe 45. Then I cannot have empty string for this one. This one too cannot be empty. This can only be iOS, Windows, or Android. So if I try to save it again, you see it's sent it to the backend. And if you come here to, if I try to get all these ones, you see it is giving me 23, 22, 21. If you come here and you come under product, you see that everything is actually getting to the backend. So it is working fine. Now after creating the new data, let us try to update and delete one. So let us update this Technospark 4 Pro. If I click on update, it is on the wrong operating system. It is Android. So save it. You see it is now Android. I can update every other part, so it works fine. And if I want to delete, just click on this. No, I clicked on the update. So if I want to click on delete, just click on it. You can see, are you sure you want to delete this data? In this case, if you check what is happening here, if I click on this, it is telling me, are you sure you want to delete this user? I'm the one that edited this thing over here to data instead of user, because it's a general table. So it might not be user, it might be products, it might be customers, it might be anything. So that is why I set it like that. So if I click on this, do you want to delete this data? Okay, you can see it is no longer there. So if I come to check the backend, if you check the terminal, you will see that the delete, you can see. Then if you come to check the backend, if I should reload, you see I cannot see the Technospark 4 anymore. Let me delete this Samsung Galaxy Tab S7. So come here, that's Samsung Galaxy Tab S7. If I should click on this and I should delete it, you see it goes away. So come here and reload, you see it goes away. So that will be the end of the tutorial basically. um I have no intention for the tutorial to be this long. I'm sorry about that, but I believe that if you stay to the end, you have gained a lot of information. Thank you very much for staying till the end, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, please, the comment section is open. You can always ask your questions, and somebody will attend to it as soon as possible. So see you in the next tutorial, and thank you very much. Don't forget to follow us on our social media pages. So thank you. I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.